The Madhya Pradesh government has had some significant reforms in the education sector in the past few years. And it has been at the forefront of innovation, especially in foundational learning. And one of them has been the recently launched District Governance Fellowship for Young Professionals, the MP NIPUN Professionals Program. We today have with us Mr. Dhanaraju S, who has been a critical driver of these reforms to speak with us about them. Mr. Dhanaraju is a 2009 batch officer who is currently the State Project Director, Samagra Shiksha, the apex implementation agency of the Department of School Education in Madhya Pradesh. It's truly a pleasure to have you here with us, sir. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much, Ayush, and special thanks for having me, on this forum. And I'm really excited to take this conversation forward.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, before we start talking about the MP Nipun Professionals Program and Mission Ankur and the kind of work the Education Department has been doing in foundational learning, our audience would love to know a little more about you, the kind of journey you have had in the civil services, and also what do you do as the State Project Director of Samagra Shiksha?
Yeah, probably it would be useful for your audience to, know a little bit about my background. I come from a small village in Karnataka. It's just 100 kilometers from Bengaluru, but they are worlds apart. People think that Bengaluru is a IT/BT hub, and the prosperity in Bengaluru might have trickled down to the entire Karnataka, but they are worlds apart. I did my schooling mostly from government educational institutions, and I started my journey. Again, it would be interesting for your audience. I started my journey in the government sector as a secondary school teacher. Uh, in 2007, I joined as Indian Revenue Service Officer, and again I appeared for exam. And 2009, I could secure a place in Indian Administrative Service. That's how I am here.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much. And sir, what has been your journey like since you joined the services?
Like any other IAS officer, we start off as a subdivisional magistrate in a subdivision. I started my journey from a place called Itarsi, which is in Hoshangabad district. Then I spent 3 long years, which is very rare, in our career paths. I spent 3 years as CEO Zilla Panchayat in Jhabua. Those who know Madhya Pradesh would know that Jhabua is predominantly a tribal district with 93% tribal population, and there are other socioeconomic issues which if time permits we can always discuss. So basically, if you Google, you find that Jhabua is one of the bottom three districts in terms of literacy. So I worked there for 3 years. And as I said, I started as a teacher. I still remain as a teacher. It was an exciting time to be CEO Zilla Panchayat, looking after the rural development part, and education, of course, as focus as always. Then I spent a brief time as ADM Jabalpur. Then I have worked as a collector in three districts, but uh, two of them are very brief. I spent considerable time in Sivni, again a tribal district and a border district. So later I have spent time in health also, uh, skill development. Now I am in education. Mostly I am known as a social sector man.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much. In fact, when you were talking about it, I remembered that I had actually spent 2 months on ground in Jhabua and Alirajpur for one of my internships. So I have some vivid memories from those days. But thank you so much for sharing that, sir. And sir, what do you do in your current role as a SPD Samagra Shiksha?
See, in Madhya Pradesh system of governance, SPD Samagra Shiksha, though technically responsible for entire school education, but I look I manage closely the elementary part of it, grade 1 to 8. Uh, though it would be very surprising for people who do not have any knowledge of the geography that I deal with. There are close to 93,000 schools in Madhya Pradesh, and we deal with close to 2 lakh teacher. And in elementary only, there are about 65 lakh children. So that is what I manage, and the entire Samagra Shiksha part.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you so much. I think now we'll just move on to delve a little deeper into the kind of work Madhya Pradesh and uh, in your leadership has been doing in foundational learning. So we have heard a lot about Mission Ankur and Mission Ankur has been doing on foundational learning in Madhya Pradesh. Can you, sir, explain for us a little on what is Mission Ankur? What does it do? When, like, what's the whole viewpoint behind it? What has been the results of Mission Ankur?
So, I mean, those who know the education ecosystem would have heard about ASER reports, which uh, basically, analyze the learnings at the elementary and secondary grade students, basically elementary grade students. Then how many of them know actual reading and the numeracy for their grade appropriate competencies. So that is one part. Secondly, we all knew that there is a problem in the foundational stage, especially grade 1, 2, 3, when children should be learning to read. So to make them to read to learn at the later stages. Madhya Pradesh started its work, well before it was thoroughly acknowledged and made as a national program in New Education Policy 2020. We started our journey way back in 2019, but because of COVID, there was an interruption. Uh, we know that National Education Policy 2020 talks elaborately about the crisis in foundational stage. There is a huge crisis. So if we don't address this crisis in time, the entire edifice of education and the ecosystem of education would become kind of irrelevant for these huge number of children. So, acknowledging and recognizing that crisis, we started our journey way back in 19. But as I said, due to interruption, our actual work started in 2021. We started with a very high quality teaching learning material, which has a teacher handbook and with a very clear laid down lesson plans to how to engage children. Secondly, we also created high quality workbooks for children, and probably we are one of the pioneers in terms of teacher capacity building. We did 10-day face-to-face training for 85,000 teachers, and it was rigorously planned and very effectively implemented. Uh, then we equipped our system for assessment, because it is unlike the pen and paper assessment which happens once in a year. It's a formative assessment happening almost every day at frequent intervals. So now we are very good footing. Now it is time to just take off.
Wonderful, sir. I think this is just wonderful to know about the kind of work that Madhya Pradesh has been doing in foundational learning and under Mission Ankur. So we also see a trend, and you talked about a little bit of it, of moving from enrollment to outcome. And this is something Madhya Pradesh is also pioneering in its foundational learning program. But do you also think that there's a mindset shift at people community level? I heard you speak about how when Mission Ankur was being launched, you tried to tell the media people that you shouldn't focus on the results that are coming out in terms of learning of students, but you should focus on what's the gap and how we are filling that gap. Do you think there has been some progress in that respect, sir?
See, when we talk about education, we always talk about, at least in government sector, we talk about three A's. One is access, second is attendance, third is achievement. Right? Access, Madhya Pradesh, in terms of at least in the elementary grade, we have achieved 100% access. There is a school available at a particular distance for every child. Now, as I said, 65 lakh children would come to our schools. it is not that I make them sit for 6 hours and serve them hard cooked meal and send them. That is not the objective of bringing children to school. Now we have to look at the second and the third A, that is attendance. Attendance has been a huge challenge in Madhya Pradesh for various reasons, but however, whatever is the number of children who remain with us uh, uh, during the academic session, we should be focusing on achievement. If I don't focus on achievement, that is basically quality. So now, first generation issues to second generation. First generation issue was, if I provide access, at least there should be school for every child. Now we have to really focusing on the second generation issues, that is the quality. And I'm really happy that it has it has become a talking point across the country, and every state is talking about how what is that the child is picking up, whether he or she is picking up grade appropriate learning or not. So Madhya Pradesh has really focus has been focusing on quality in the last couple of years, and we have laid down a very clear roadmap for next decade to come, which rarely happens in government sector. But we have a very clear plan for at least next 5 years. What is the kind of intervention that we will be focusing on? What is the kind of capacity building that will be providing to the system, and overall improvement in the understanding and engaging with parents and community. That is one thing which lacks in government sector. We are taking parents and community together to achieve these quality goals.
Sure, sir. I think one of the biggest pieces, and I like when you talk about the forward-looking pieces and the vision of the Mission Ankur program, I think the Nipun Professionals program that has been recently launched would definitely be a benchmark with 52 young professionals being part of district level governance to ensure quality education and quality learning at foundational stages. So let's talk a little more about the newly launched MP NIPUN fellowship, which has generated a lot of interest among people. Could you just start by telling us a little bit about the fellowship? What is the fellowship for? What's the model of the fellowship, and what are some of the basic details about the fellowship?
Before actually talking about the fellowship program, I'll just give you a brief link between where we left last year and how are we starting this year. So after creating the content, capacity building, assessment system, we also did a baseline of our children across all 320 blocks in Madhya Pradesh. Probably that is one of the largest baseline any state would have done, with a very scientifically designed random sampling and the internationally accepted tools. Now we know where our children are, we know where we want to reach, right? Our district teams are really galvanized. We need highly motivated young people to come and uh, become a kind of hub to all the stakeholders in the districts. So in that context, Nipun professionals would be coming to our system. So basically, we are looking, postgraduates and undergraduates from reputed institutions. More than anything, we need people with, commitment and, lot of energy, enthusiasm to come and work in this field. See, this is very unlike other field. This sector gives you a lot of satisfaction at the end of the day when you see some change because of your presence in the district would do. See, these young professionals would be coordinating with the stakeholders in the district, and they would be regularly interacting with district collectors, COs, Zilla Panchayats, uh, if not on daily basis, at least on weekly basis, with lot of data, target setting, then actual practice on the ground. What are the gaps? So they would be are point men on, of course, without getting into sounding as a gender bias thing. So they will be working as a point men in the ground. They'll be continuously interacting with the state, at the same time continuously interacting with the district collectors and COs Ila Panchayat. So basically, they would be leading district PMU, small PMU, but it's an enlarged community. As I said, they will be interacting with our diets, which are our educational, sorry, academic institutions. They will be interacting with our diets. They'll be interacting with our DPCs, BRCs, CACs on the ground. Of course, if they have time and energy, they would definitely get an opportunity to interact with thousands of teachers on the ground. So all said and done, this is going to one of the exciting opportunity to understand how the government system function, interact with the senior officers in the district, and become a kind of catalyst to the effort that the entire state is doing. And we are
That's
we are lucky, we are lucky that TIS has partnered with us. TIS needs no introduction. They'll be onboarding these professionals. They'll also be doing a kind of capacity building, hand holding of these professionals for rest of the 2 years, and they'll be onboarded for 2 years. At the end of the apart from the monetary benefits that these young guys would get, they would also be getting a certificate from this. More than anything, they'll be going back with huge experience of how the government functions, what are the field challenges, is there a way to address the large scale impacting public policies.
that's wonderful to know, sir, and I completely agree with you. I think people like you who have started their careers at district level actually understand the challenges, and it's almost an opportunity that's being given by the Madhya Pradesh government for young professionals like us who are not part of the government to be able to understand, interact with stakeholders, and actually understand the problem on ground. In fact, sir, I was a chief minister's fellow in one of the states at district level, and even today, 4 years later, whenever I'm thinking of any intervention or any experience, I go back to the drawing board, I go back to the district level experience, and I think of how things would trickle down. So it's a completely unparalleled opportunity that way, that the Madhya Pradesh government is providing to these 52 fellows to be part of this. So what are some of the things you're looking in these fellows? What are some who are the people who should apply for this kind of a fellowship? What are the things that would make the people who are applicants stand apart in their applications?
Yeah. Just to pick up from where you left. See, it is nothing like being government. It is nothing like being government. I if I do something, I'll be touching 65 lakh children. I mean, it's a different level of experience. But everybody cannot be government, but it's an opportunity to be part of the government for 2 years. And definitely there is ample opportunity to see the impact of the work that these professionals would do. As I mentioned, apart from their educational qualification, we need committed young people to come and be part of this program, because it is social sector is very different from other sectors. It's a very different thing. You need to have a fire in your belly to understand the problems of the people, to be very forthcoming to help them, since they will be having the backing of the entire district administration system. So I think they'll get an opportunity to see the change that they envision. So basically, where they pick up, the starting point would be, as I mentioned, we have done our baseline. We know how each districts are doing in terms of reading abilities in terms of numeracy, in terms of other things in FLN. So that's the starting point, and we know the roadmap. The roadmap is very clearly laid down. We have trained our teachers. Teachers would be practicing on the ground. These professionals would basically, uh, you know, uh, looking and going around, making sure that whatever the plan that is laid down from the state, whether it is being implemented or not, if there are any issues, they'll be communicating to collectors, CEOs, and to us. Then at very frequent intervals, we will also be doing health checking, diagnostic kind of surveys. Again, they would give some kind of insight to these districts. They'll be doing data analysis, giving back reports to the districts and to the state. Uh, Overall, it's a kind of coordination work, but very influential if they have that fire in us. Uh, I mean, most of us have seen professionals, young professionals. I mean, during my district tenure, I've seen PMRDF professionals. I've seen Atal Bal Mission professionals. So some of them have been extremely good and coming with real solutions. Because what happens, unfortunately, I'm not criticizing my clan, but once we are in the system, we become uh, kind of justifying everything that is happening, and we say by it happens like this, kai saal se ho raha hai, and it will take time to change. We need outsider perspective also. Probably these guys would come and bring some outsider perspective. I am very happy that if they, bring some practical challenges from the ground and say, ki, see, this is how we have to redesign, relook at the program. So there is a lot of thing, the set of lot of things that these guys would be, doing in the district.
That's wonderful to know. So I think you touched a chord there, which I would just want us to speak a little more about. You mentioned your experience working with development sector professionals, people from outside the government like PMRDF and other organizations that are working. We also see a surge of that happening. I think PMRDF was one of the first ones, which was I think launched around 2009 to 11, and which was also incidentally also anchored by the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, which was training these fellows back then. And that way, Tata Institute of Social Sciences has some great experience doing that. Uh, what has been your experience, and what's your viewpoint of the search in the development sector of young professionals, the outsider perspective? Because we also see a sea change from people who were critical of the government as NGOs or think tanks, or people who were working outside the government, were working on ground. There may be hundreds of NGOs in Chabua who are working on ground, but they were not working with the government. And as you were talking about it, working with government means working at scale, being able to, even this one district fellow would be influencing so many lives and working with so many teachers and students. What's your viewpoint on the recent surge of young professionals and NGOs coming in and working with the government?
So probably that would, you club lot many things into one question. See, one, if you are inviting some young professional from outside, the system should be receptive. And we should be mindful of the fact that these young professionals come from very, very reputed institutions and with an independent mind, right? And they would be, I mean, they would be many times critical and maybe dejected of the way that government functions. But government inviting them would also show that government is also ready to receive some outsider perspective. That is one aspect of it. Secondly, I mean, in my tenure as CEO Zilla Panchayat and district collectors, uh, I've seen PMRDF fellows. I've seen Atal, Poshan Mission fellows. They have been wonderful. As I said, it largely depends on how much of a reception that you're ready to give. If you say कि भैया तू तो you are comfort 1 year 2 year, you just do whatever you're here for. If you're ready to listen to critical perspective of the government, I think they're going to be huge assets. And one more thing, they would come with technically very sound background, whether it is analyzing the data, giving perspectives and other things. So I think they are going to be huge assets, provided a we give them enough time, and we give them some elbow space to do, uh, while within the framework of the government, do some things beyond their actual job role. So I think they'll be definitely useful to the government. And
So let
last
yeah.
thing I wanted to add, uh, see, it is very easy to criticize a system from outside. When you be part of the system, you understand the challenges that the government system faces. I'm not justifying the government system's inertia, lethargy, insensitivity, whatever negative word connotations that we might have, but government really intends to do things which are in the interest of the people, but there are lot many challenges which we sometimes have been able to address. Sometimes we fail to some extent, sometimes we fail terribly, but uh, you would understand the government when either you are in the government or part of the government. So I mean, these young professionals would get an opportunity to be part of the government, and that would really widen their worldview. I would tell wherever they go, whether they would go to private sector or public sector, definitely these 2 years are going to widen their worldview. That's what I strongly believe.
I completely agree with you, sir. I think when I look back at my experience, nothing else could have taught me, like being a young professional with the government, taught me about how government functions and what are the challenges. And honestly, like for those of us who were part of the governance problems, especially during the COVID first wave and second wave, really realized uh, how difficult it is and how dedicated government is. When the entire private sector was failing at providing services, the government was working on ground and being able to do that. But as you said, there are legacy issues, and if one wants to contribute to solving for them and be in social sector, there can't be better opportunities like young professionals being part of the government, having that backing from the government to be able to do that. So while we talked about the uh, what kind of a aspiration, what kind of a point of view you have of the young professionals coming into the system, do you also have some advice for these young professionals on how to work better with the government? How do you deal with those days when you're not able to actually gain the trust of your stakeholder, even if you're trying to contribute, let's say as a NIPUN professional or a prime minister's rural development fellow, but your collector is like, no, no, this is not done. I एक दो साल के लिए आए हो, तुम चले जाओगे, I don't want to entertain you.
One thing, it is not just specific to young professionals. For anybody, if you are entering any system, if you don't have strong faith in the ability of the system, there is no point in entering any system. If I sit here and I don't have strong faith in this system, that this system can deliver, I have no business to be here, right? So first, everybody should be coming with a mindset that yes, this system will deliver, this system can improve. Why I'm telling this, I mean, maybe a slight digression, but see, I consider myself as a product of the government system. I always see as a beneficiary of this government system. My schooling has been in government institutions, and I am here. And I have something to give back to the system because this system has helped me to reach this place. So I always work with that intention. So if you have faith in the system, whether it is young professional or a bureaucrat or a politician, please come with a faith in the system. If you don't have faith in the system, you should not be entering the system. One. So young professional, whoever intends to come, please come with a positive mindset that yes, this system can deliver. A. When you come into the system, please understand the system before making any comment or before making any judgment, right? Without understanding the entire ecosystem, if I become judgmental, I am not going to help anything. Third, be patient. Be patient. You will be heard. There is a time for everything, right? So you will be heard, definitely be heard, and good, well intended thoughts will always be respected. So, I mean, I expect whoever comes to the system come with a positive mindset, come with an open mind, understand the system before being judgmental. Then please come up with solutions. Definitely, you will going to help the system. If you don't have these three qualities, it's not going to be any useful to be part of this program.
That's it, sir. I think I completely agree. So, talking about Mission Ankur and the synergies between Mission Ankur and this fellowship program, the MP NIPUN Professionals program, what's the kind of synergy that you look at when you talk about MP NIPUN Professionals program and Mission Ankur? What would be the critical gaps, or what would be the critical things that the MP NIPUN Professionals would be doing to implement Mission Anchor on the ground?
See, I mean, if you look at the journey that we have, seen so far, there are two parts. One, there is a government system, right from SPD to the last teacher who is teaching in the village. There is a huge government system, but at the same time, there is a limitation to the government system to do kind of uh, studies across the state and best practices across the globe and come up with a solution that would suit to our requirement. So the team that is working with us, Mission Ankur team, which is an alliance of many NGO partners. So all these NGOs, they are bringing in a lot of newness to the system, novelty to the system, which probably would have not possible to our people in the system because we don't have that much of exposure to the outside world. Government has a limitation. So the team sitting in Bhopal is bringing the experiences from across the globe. That's how we created the high quality teaching learning material, teacher professional development program, assessment, baselining, sampling. We have done all this. So now we need similar kind of setup at the district level. There is a government system. We need some young team, people with young professional, they would come and lead this team. So build this gap of the government system and the implementation part. So Nipun professionals would be a kind of extended arm of PMU that is in Bhopal in all the 52 districts.
Okay, sir. And sir, we briefly also touched upon the role of the Tata Institute of Social Sciences and how it would also be providing certification as well as professional development opportunities through these fellows. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the professional development opportunities and the kind of training, orientation that these fellows would go through to equip them not just for the fellowship but also for later in their life in terms of learning?
Yeah. See, basically, we have not restricted, candidates from a specific academic streams. So they would be coming from diversified streams. So in the beginning, there would be orientation about, uh, of course, the larger education ecosystem, FLN ecosystem, and the work that Madhya Pradesh has done. So that would be kind of basic, training program that this would be doing. Initially, it would be general understanding about the education ecosystem, FLN, then specific work done by Madhya Pradesh. In the later part of their program, they'll also be getting uh, other kind of exposures about the overall public policy, challenges in the public policy, and the solution that have worked elsewhere, which can be used in our context. These kind of training programs would be provided to these young professionals, NIPUN professionals, and at the end of 2 years, they'll be given a certificate. As I mentioned, they'll be returning with huge amount of experience, which would really help them in their later careers.
Wonderful to know, sir. I think it does sound like a very well rounded, wholesome program for any person with a requisite amount of experience under the age of 30 to want to work with the government and understand things on the ground, but also contribute at the same time to governance challenges, particularly in education. I also want to tell our audience that if you want to apply, you can go to mpnipun.in to apply for the program. The last date of the application is the 21st of May.
Stuff may, yeah.
And I think the program also, and it's available on YouTube under the MP Nipun Professionals program. The program also did a webinar to, if you want to know more about the kind of role, responsibilities, the kind of things that you're expected to bring to the program, the kind of things you're expected to take from the program, you can log into the webinar on YouTube. There's social media page on LinkedIn to know more about the program, which has been creating a lot of buzz and a lot of activity on LinkedIn about it. So it's really sounds like a wonderful program. So, and before we let you go today, if you have any parting thoughts or anything that you would like to share, we would also like to hear from you any funny experience of you working with the government. We know all of us have a lot of them, but anything that you feel like you would want to share.
Uh, Not funny, but I would like to really leave this conversation with a very serious thought. See, I mean, whether uh, you you are product of government schooling system or private schooling system, in our country, lot of public money, taxpayers' money is spent on funding the entire system. Even if you are an IITN, even if you study in AIMS, any of these reputed colleges, even private institutions, directly, indirectly, taxpayers' money, public money is heavily involved. We all owe to this society to give back in whatever forms, whatever ways we are capable of. Uh, Wherever you are, please, keep this in mind that this society has helped us to reach whatever place we are in. If not for this society, the investment by the society in terms of government funding, we would not have reached this place. And each one of us owe something back to this society. That is one aspect. And if you get an opportunity to do that in a very systematic way, nothing like it. I mean, I'm fortunate to be part of the government. I'm very fortunate to spend last 2 years in education sector. I'll be very happy to superannuate from education department. So it has been a wonderful journey so far. uh, this is an opportunity for other young professionals to be part of the government for 2 years. In many fellowship programs, what happens is they come individually and there is no support system, interaction with the system. But I'll assure you, you feel as if you're part of the entire system of 60 to 60 sorry 92,000 schools, 2 lakh teachers, and the 65 lakh children. And in FLN we'll be handling around 25 lakh children. It's going to be an amazing experience. Please do come be part of this journey, and uh, go back with lot of satisfaction and tons of experience.
Completely agreed, sir. And I think we are, especially as a democracy, at such an inflection point of the demographic graph that we have so many young educated professionals who can contribute and give back to the system. And one of these opportunities is the MP NIPUN Professionals Program. So I'm really hoping that a lot of people do apply, and a lot of people uh, get a chance to, the 52 lucky people who get a chance to contribute to the governance in Madhya Pradesh have a wonderful experience doing that. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. It was a very insightful conversation for me personally, and I'm sure for the audience as well. Before we go today, I would also like to ask you if you would want to suggest any readings or any books to our audience to go through, or anything else that.
Uh, Ayush, I'm a very, very unsystematic reader. I mean, every time, I look at my reading table, there would be at least, one dozen, more than a dozen books with many, page markers. And every weekend I try to clean up my table, and it's an unfinished kind of agenda. I go to arrange books, pick up two books, read a chapter, then I leave. Because I mean, though I am a literature student, I read everything that makes sense to me. I read history, I read about culture, current affairs, social issues, fiction, of course. So, I mean, I don't think my suggestion would be of any use to your reader, but yeah, please read if you have taste for it.
Wonderful. What are one or two of the recent books that you've read?
I read, I mean, as of now, I'm reading seriously about the biography of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. It's a very recent book, which is titled "A Part Apart." It's a wonderful book. Those who are interested to understand the social sector challenges in the system must read that book.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure talking to you, Ayush. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.